Hello everyone, thank you for having us today. I'm Natàlia Grau, Marketing Manager at Citibeats. We are very excited to be presenting at the GovTech Week on behalf of Citibeats to talk about the advancements that the use of artificial intelligence has been making in the areas of public policy, decision making, and social impact projects. We hope we will bring some light on how AI can help and impact on citizens' life. Just a little background on who we are. Citibeats is a social data platform based on artificial intelligence with natural language processing and machine learning proprietary algorithms. And what we do is to transform people's opinions at scale into data that decision makers can use to solve problems faster. And today we'll be talking about what it means to make data more human, what we define as ethical AI, and how we achieve it, plus some use cases. But first, we'd like to talk about data. We know that the exponentially growing reliance on data doesn't need to be explained here, but from our observations, data is to rely on numbers, things that are easy to measure, but we know that the humans, our voices, our opinions are not easy to measure. To capture human data, we need insights on text, and this is scary for a lot of institutions because how do you get clear data from text? Opinions are subjective and not easily measured in the way that we are used to. And this is why Citibeats created our ethical AI platform. We like to compare it to a tool much like a social microscope would work that lets governments and institutions analyze what people are saying and develop actionable insights. So, where does human-centered data come from? If you think about that, on Twitter alone there are over 500 million tweets shared every single day. The internet and social media are designed to give people a platform to express themselves. So what we do at Citibeats is use the power of AI to collect public opinions by connecting to public sources like social media and other data sources provided by our clients like call helpline transcriptions, CRMs, chatbots, and so on. The advantages of the automated social data collection for decision makers are several. Usually when organizations want to get a feel for public sentiment, they turn to traditional methods like polls or surveys, but from a time and cost standpoint, collecting feedback and analyzing the data for results can take weeks and is costly. Because AI works in real time, both time and cost are greatly reduced, especially in situations that are in constant fluctuation, like now with COVID, where circumstances change weekly, if not daily, real-time and data becomes even more valuable. Also because surveys require so much work and budget, they are limiting in terms of geographical coverage. A survey might cover up to a handful of cities at most, while AI can easily include hundreds of cities just as easily. Another important advantage is that the results come directly from the people. There are no preset questions like you will find in a poll or survey, so you will get insight into topics you may not even know were an issue. This not only lets public policy decision makers help find solutions to problems that are most relevant to the population, but can help them to take preemptive measures on topics that come up and can be addressed before they become local issues. Before we move on to some use cases of the impact of AI technology for the decision-making process, we'd like to address an important topic, and that's the issue of AI and ethics. According to some, AI is so potentially powerful that there's no way to machines are spying on us and having any regard for our personal privacy. It is a valid concern, and we take the issue of the ethics very seriously. The way that we ensure that we are delivering on the ethical promise is by strictly adhering to 5 principles. The first one is the respect for privacy. All the data analyzed are extracted from public and open sources, social networks, blogs, digital press, websites, or from private sources that have permissions to use this data. Another one is the interpretation of collective data, not individual. Citibeats analyzes collective data, which means that it works with aggregated data. By working only with a large amount of anonymous data and collective opinions, it never detects the opinions of specific individuals. Individuals are always anonymized, and including collectives and global trends are analyzed, so the objective is not to detect individual cases. Another one is the identification of deviations. The platform identifies the discrepancies caused by social demographic factors such as gender, age, etc. And another one is the use for positive social impact. Citibeats always puts a platform at the service of projects with a positive impact on people's lives. And the last one is non-partisan application. The platform never works for ideas, parties, or political movements, but works for administrations and institutions, NGOs, non-profit entities, and other decision makers. Now let's get into some use cases that we have collected from projects around the world. We'll go through a few of the projects that we worked on 2019 in Latin America, the Caribbean, Spain, Dublin, and Japan. This focus of these projects range from citizen engagement to social inclusion, to disaster mitigation, and to regulation and consumer protection. The first case we'll look at this is a citizen engagement project in Dublin, in which we partnered with Smart Dublin, which is part of the Dublin City Council. The challenge was that the councils were trying to find new ways to understand people's opinions at scale about rapidly changing social issues. Slow methods were being used, like sensors to monitor air contamination and traffic congestion. To get civic feedback, surveys were the main tools used, but again, these took time and were expensive. At the highest level, Smart Dublin has been transforming the qualitative feedback collected into quantitative indicators of top priorities, the leading of which are homelessness and housing. And the Council is reporting this in the Dublin Economic Monitor, placing innovative social indicators alongside traditional economic indicators such as GDP. The collected information has also been used tactically as input for decisions ranging from controversial investment issues to the improvement of public spaces like adding designated bike lanes. Next, we have a social inclusion project for which we collaborated with Fundación 11, Spain's leading NGO for representing people with disabilities. And the challenge was giving a voice to vulnerable groups and excluded groups when it comes to decision about public spending and infrastructure design. There is a great diversity of needs among people with disabilities, from physical to cognitive to auditory disabilities, that should be taken into account when creating inclusive and accessible cities. However, there is a growing opportunity for this population to share their personal experience with inaccessible infrastructure online. Automatically collecting and structuring this information can, for the first time, provide rich quantitative and qualitative evidence for identifying improvements to accessibility barriers. For this project, Citibeats developed a real-time accessibility map of Spain. This map identifies and synthesizes relevant complaints made by people with disabilities and others around them who became sensors of accessibility barriers. With this approach, Fundación 11 has been able to capture temporally relevant needs, such as the request to make national elections more understandable for people with cognitive disabilities, and geographically specific needs, such as areas where e-scooters park on sidewalks were limiting access for people with reduced mobility. These human stories, as well as qualified evidence of issues, support advocacy with companies, local and regional government. This next project came as a result of severe floods that hit the east coast of Spain in September 2019 after a series of heavy rains called Gota Fría. The floods caused 7 deaths, plus damage to over 5,000 hectares of land, affecting 30,000 people and 190 million euros in personal property damages. And as flooding events become more frequent as a result of the climate change, governments need to find ways to plan for wide-scale investment to make regions at risk more prepared. In order to effectively support such a considerable national investment, better data is needed at the local level to understand how and where the priorities for reinforcement are. In the last few years, big data has begun to be used to inform a disaster response. One of the leaders in this field is Telefónica's Luca Big Data for Social Good. And by partnering with us, the Telefonica team was able to use their mobile phone data to map out change mobility patterns and take it a step further by cross-referencing data that Citibeats brought to the table, which was social media data that included valuable assets like photos, damage types, requests, and the ability to geolocate the source with a high level of accuracy. This approach led to highly focused and effective guidance for local and national organizations in their disaster relief efforts. We got involved with a very interesting project in Japan by partnering up with Entity Data, one of the Japan's leading data communication companies. The challenge addressed here was the overall difficulty of drawing actionable conclusions from online customer complaints. Since all customer-centered communication moved online via social media and help forums, all complaints and dissatisfaction gets vented out on these online channels. Every day, Japanese consumers are expressing thousands of complaints about hundreds of different products and companies across hundreds of online platforms, but there was no efficient process in place to make sense of it all, let alone provide solutions. The approach taken here was to draw on entities' data, strong data partnerships in Japan to collect consumer complaints across channels, and then use configured Citibeats algorithms to analyze them for insights, such as the types of goods being mentioned, associate products and companies, and geographic regions to which the complaints are referring. And this results in an early warning system which regulators can use as a real-time monitor of emerging consumer protection issues. With this data, regulators can react faster to launch investigations or take actions to prevent the spread of health issues before they affect more consumers. The COVID pandemic, being so global and ever-changing by nature, is a good example of how a platform that analyzes people's opinions at scale and in real time can bring a lot of valuable to organizations that are trying to keep up and try to provide aid in ever-shifting situations. Here we talk about a little project that we work on, the Inter-American Development Bank Group. The project is named Citibeats and was developed as a citizen perception observatory that analyzes and processes millions of opinions on the internet to listen and support citizens, governments, and the private sector in finding answers to the needs of specific regions in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the data is publicly accessible and is presented by topic in interactive graphics for easy understanding. The data collected from Twitter, online comments via forums, chats, and blogs was divided into categories as seen here. Categories such as crisis measures, food security, household and business economy, the new normal, education, and more. We found that at the onset of generated a significant volume of concerns about public health in the region, up to 30% of the total conversation in March. But as the months have passed, we see a diversification of the themes. Now the pandemic affects to the lives of citizens in mixed ways. For example, in Caribbean countries, the Black Lives Matter movement spurred rampant criticisms of police inequality, while in South American countries, we observe growing unrest in the mental health category as commentary about anxiety and depression became more prominent. Regions and individual countries show varying issues that needed to be brought to light for local decision makers to prepare for and handle. The real-time nature of data analysis has proven to be extremely valuable. For example, on April 12th, Citibeats detected a 350% increase in testimonies about hunger in Venezuela, shortly after the announcement of 30 quarantine days. The press reported on this information 2 weeks later. We are still collecting and analyzing results, but as you can see, this social data can be very valuable to organizations who are seeking to develop policies and initiatives for unprecedented conditions. And with this information, there is at least the start of a roadmap where before there was none. Well, I'd like to thank you, all of you, for joining us here today. I hope we've been able to shed a positive light on the ways that artificial intelligence is making an impact on public policy guidance and development. And please feel free to visit our website for more information about our work, and we invite you to sign up for our newsletter for ongoing updates about our global projects. Thank you very much.